toxic masculinity.
All right, well, that is it for the news, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know if you have any questions or comments. I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say about all of this. It'll give me a second here to... we've got a super chat somewhere, but I think oh, no, there's one. $5 from Democratic Detox. Chris, your energy is much more natural when your lady friend ain't around. We notice the good stuff, man. The lady friend actually is my wife, Democratic Detox. Well, I'll tell you what I figured out. And this is actually something that I think to some degree that you're right. And the reason is because when I'm with Valeria, I'm in a conversation with her. And when I'm without Valeria, I'm in a conversation with you guys directly. And I actually think that's a lot more compelling. And that's not to say that Valeria doesn't add a lot to the show. I actually quite like her. I think she's quite charming. I did marry the woman, obviously. But yeah, we've kind of decided that just in terms of format, it's actually better to just talk with somebody directly, you guys, instead of... but, you know, that's not to say I'm going to get rid of her on the show, but there are drawbacks to having co-hosts and to have other people on the show, because, again, you're not talking directly to people watching. You're sort of talking to each other, and that can be less engaging sometimes. Although I do like the comedy that she adds sometimes. I do think she's quite funny. So I like comedy. I like funny moments. So that's why I like Valeria on the show. But MK says Chris likes his man space. LOL. I don't quite know what that means. But sure, yeah, I'll go along with that. I'm trying to read some of this stuff. John Bajak says, just read something on Facebook about vaccine shedding. Have you heard about anything about that? No, I haven't. I'll have to look that up. The vax is experimental and they have no long-term studies yet. No vaccine has come out as quickly as this one. Well, that's the thing. Yep, that's it. It's an experimental method. They don't exactly know all the potential side effects, and so it isn't as safe as a traditional vaccine. Dark Crusher says, my Bible is my vaccination. Yeah, I mean, if you're a Christian and you die... Most Christians aren't that worried about dying, I don't think. Frank James, who the hell is Procter & Gamble? Procter & Gamble is one of the biggest corporations on the planet. Yeah, they make Gillette, they make all kinds of stuff. You should look into it. Frank James, the people that make these stupid ads think that us peasant folks don't live in the real world. Thank God we have these people to tell us what we can't see by looking out the window. Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. Frank James, in 40 years, people are going to look back and think today is a viciously racist time. This is ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, that is it. It's weird. It's sort of like the civil rights movement again, but without the need for it. It's because these people just want to cosplay as civil rights activists. Trisha's Healthy Apple writes, WTF, what were they even selling? Trish... Exactly. John Bajak says, how about a good PureFix director? Sorry, PureFlix. I don't know what that means. I don't know what PureFlix is. Let's see here. Frank James writes, there was a time when the things that are considered unwoke today was what made for great stories. Well, that's right. And I'll tell you what, unwoke stuff does really make great stories. Really, truly. I'm trying to think of an example. There's this moment. Actually, there's a pretty anti-racist thing in a movie once, but you couldn't do it today. It's something I love this moment. It was from the 70s, and you got to understand. At least this is my perception. In the 60s, right, there was some kind of deal between black people and white people, right? We had the civil rights movement, of course, and then once we were sort of over that, we had the Civil Rights Act in the 1960s, and we moved on to the 70s. There was this kind of era of sort of harmony before, like, the crack epidemic of the 1980s and the gangs of the 1980s. You had this sort of period in the 1970s where black people and white people were kind of getting along pretty well. And there was this moment in the movie called Escape from Alcatraz. If you've not seen the movie Escape from Alcatraz, excellent film. They sort of copied it for The Shawshank Redemption, but I think it's a far superior picture. So if you like The Shawshank Redemption, watch Escape from Alcatraz. I think it's much better. it's a much more masculine film. Escape from Alcatraz is with Clint Eastwood, and Clint Eastwood befriends this old black guy in the prison. They're in Alcatraz, obviously. And this old black guy like works in the library, and he can get books and stuff for Clint Eastwood. Clint Eastwood is trying to escape from Alcatraz, so this guy's can get him stuff and whatnot. But the old black guy, is like the elder of all the black people in the prison. So he's like the top black guy in the prison. Like he's sort of like intimidatingly powerful. Like if he basically orders somebody to be killed, they'll be killed. Like he's a very powerful black guy. And Clint Eastwood, he's just some regular guy in the prison. He's some regular dude in the prison. He doesn't have a gang or anything. He's just a random guy. So he needs to go talk to him one day, and he goes into the yard, in the prison yard where everybody's kind of just hanging out. And he goes up the steps. There's this sort of like set of bleachers or concrete steps, I guess. And to go talk to this guy, but because the guy is such an important guy within the black community in that prison, he's got guards. He's actually got black guys that stand guard so that nobody can go talk to him. And so, so Clint Eastwood walks up the stairs and see these guards, and they like kind of shuffle in front of him, and he kind of like looks around them like, hey, what the hell? And the black guy goes, yeah, it's okay. He can sit next to me. So they move to the side, and Clint Eastwood steps up to him, and again, they become friends by this point. But he sits on the step just one down from this guy. And the black guy, kind of messing with him, I guess, goes, you scared, boy? And Clint Eastwood's like, what? And he goes, well, either you're scared or, you didn't sit on my step. You sat on the step one down. He says, so either you're scared or you just hate ends. He says, which is it? Of course, he says the N-word. And Clint Eastwood just kind of like looks away from him like, what the hell? Stands up, sits on his step on the same rows, because obviously he's just trying to be respectful, right? But he's like, fine. So he sits on the same guy's step, and he turns to me and goes, I just hate ends. And they both just kind of sit there for a minute, taking it in, and the guy's just like, okay, all right. I'm effing with you, you're effing with me. It's all good, right? And it was such a beautiful moment, right? It's such a beautiful moment. Clint Eastwood calls a black guy the N-word, and it's actually a sign of camaraderie, right? Because they're just effing with each other. And to me, that was like a perfect scene to show that despite the fact that we acknowledge there's some kind of, racial tension in the world in the 1970s still, you can mess with me about it a little bit. I'll mess with you. We'll have a little bit of a laugh, and we'll get down to business and we'll talk. It was just small talk. It's just them having fun together. And if you haven't seen that scene, you gotta watch that. It's a great movie. It's a great scene. It's great. It's great. But you can't do stuff like that anymore. But that's such a creative, brilliant moment. I'm watching this show again called Silicon Valley. I don't know if you guys ever saw this movie. It's on HBO. Great show. If you haven't seen it, you should watch this show. And one of the guys they're a bunch of coder friends, right? They're programmers, computer programmers in Silicon Valley, and they live in this crappy house together, and they're all trying to develop the next big app. And one of them is like a Satanist white guy, and one of them is a Muslim Pakistani. And it turns out that the Satanist white guy is Canadian, and he doesn't have American citizenship, so he's an illegal immigrant in one of these episodes. And so the Muslim Pakistani guy starts going, holy crap. He's like, so there's an illegal immigrant in this house, and it's not me? And then he starts, so the whole episode, he's giving this guy crap for being an illegal immigrant, but he's the white guy, and the Pakistani Muslim guy is a full citizen. And it's just hilarious. The whole episode's hilarious. And that's that kind of comedy. That's the kind of gold that we want to see on our TV shows and in our movies. And because of woke culture, we're not getting that anymore. I don't even watch modern television. The reason I'm rewatching Silicon Valley right now is because there's nothing good on television. After Silicon Valley, I'm going to try to find another show that I have watched already and rewatch it because there's just nothing good out anymore. I like The Mandalorian. I like Stranger Things. Stranger Things has, I don't know, it's been on hiatus for like a year now, I guess, because of coronavirus. But yeah, we don't really have a lot of good television anymore. There was a nice little peak when they had Breaking Bad come out, and there was Silicon Valley was out, and there was a few good shows, and then it just like crashed like Dogecoin, which I do need to check and make sure that I'm not lost all my money. Yep, we're still doing okay. We're almost at 50 cents. Okay. For 45 cents. That's not too bad. Not too bad. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I think I'm done. Let's see here. Dark Crusher Clint Eastwood has a pass. Why? Because he like dated a black woman or something? Was he married to a black woman or something like that? I don't know. Trisha's Healthy Appetite says, I agree that when you're talking to us, it's more engaging, but I also really like Valeria. The occasional change that you're doing works, even if it's just because she's working. Yeah, it works. It works. Okay, I got this massive uptick in viewers, and it's right now that I'm going to close the show. I will read John Bajak's thing. He says, Pure Flicks are the people who put out God's Not Dead and God's Not Dead 2. Oh, okay. That's cool. Yeah, maybe I can work with them and we'll do a movie or something like that. Although some of the movies that I've written I don't think aren't family friendly. Yeah, I have some concepts for movies that are kind of violent, more sort of like action films of the 80s, and I have a lot of different kinds of stories. It's funny, I was actually talking the other day about how there's been a couple of stories that I've written and pitched in Hollywood, one of which I think may have been stolen and made into a show, and then the other one they wouldn't even read, they wouldn't even look at it. And it was really frustrating because they were really good projects, and I said I pitched to a guy a story that it's Ryan Reynolds' best friend. I pitched a story to him, and it was very similar to a film that Ryan Reynolds had already done, but I hadn't seen it, so I didn't know this. And that's kind of funny. You do get these sort of parallel thinking. And I think I created the impression that a lot of the stuff I write is similar to other stuff in Hollywood. I just want to amend that by saying these are the exceptions. These are the weird things. I've written I would actually say probably something like hundreds of stories in my life. I've written hundreds of short stories, feature films, TV shows. I've written hundreds of stories. And the vast majority of stories that I've written are nothing that you've seen before, or are nothing that are on TV. They're really, everything's like original, but then occasionally you get a story that seems to have a parallel to something else that's being produced at the same time. And I think a lot of that has to do with just the influences that you have in the world. So there's other TV shows that are out that kind of inspire ideas. There's other stuff that's happening in the news and the world. And so I think writers can all kind of get a similar idea based on other stuff that's going on in the world. We can all kind of have this sort of parallel thinking occasionally. But the vast majority of the stuff that I've written, there's nothing like it on TV right now. And it's annoying because the stuff I write is genius. All right. And on that bombshell, I think it's time to go. One of these days, I'll tell you guys another story that I have, an original story. I tend not to tell original stories because I still have this sense that, well, maybe one day I'll sell something. I've never sold any of my stuff. Anyway, guys, you have a great day, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Toxic Masculinity.